That. Hello and welcome to the Playground Experience. You got here tonight Divine Sunshine, which is myself, and April Williams. Tonight's topic is being comfortable with the uncomfortable. And so I know really with things and the energies that's going on right now. We have the eclipse has really been kind of throwing us around, and we're really trying to settle ourselves. And especially with we got a lot of things that's happening in the news, especially with I think about me being a teacher, it really hits hard with that with the shooting that went on in Texas with the 21 that was shot at the school, and then also with the two teachers as well. How again out of this situation, what is calling for us, although it's very uncomfortable, but it is a very serious call for change. And how through that we have to find through that uncomfortable situation and experience, how we've got to move past those old ideologies and belief systems that we have about the gun usage and violence, and finding another way instead of us talking about it but actually doing something to actually change and come together. And that's how, again, in some ways, what we're experiencing now, we're getting a lot of trial by fire, we're getting a lot of diamond press process experiences here. I definitely know that with myself. And you're finding yourself really digging deep to find another alternative or way in which instead of going to your old bag of tricks to solve something, you're like, you know what? I'm learning now that me using those old tools is not really working. And I think I need to do something totally different that is really going to cause this major shift to go on. And it's really due to this being in this place now that the universe has put us in, where we have been really truly um, pressed and like, I don't like this. Like, why is this happening to me? There's a lot of questioning of why, I think, for some. And seeing that again, that I in this space of me feeling like it's almost like that card I'm seeing all tied up that I've been saying, and she got that little horn and she got that slight smile. It's like, I'm okay, no, I'm fine, just where I'm at. And universe is kind of like poking, saying, aren't those ropes too tight? Isn't that horn thing that's on top of your head becoming more heavier and more burden? Now it seems like again you losing feeling in your arm. Before you say it's all right, I can deal with it. But I think now it's time for you to kind of pay attention to what's actually happening to you. And that's what made me come up with tonight's topic, was because I think some of us have been lying. I'll just say it, call it like it is, and say I'm fine where I'm at. And the universe is like saying, no, you're not. And we're getting that big push right now where we are, for us to again acknowledge where we are, call it like it is, seeing what's our part in what's going on, and seeing what do we need to do in order to move forward to get out of that that was all tied up. They say I'm good, and it's like, no, I'm really not, but I've been lying to myself for quite some time. What? So, April, what do you feel? I'm going to see if I can find that. Because some people might say, I ain't seen that card before. Let me see if I can find that card in my deck for you all
Well,
so you can see.
one of the most interesting parts about being uncomfortable or comfortable in the uncomfortable is coming from the ascended part that you've been training for. For those of you who understand what I mean by you've been training, you've been in the process of doing the meditations, doing the self care rituals, doing the shedding of old paradigm beliefs in order to put you in a stronghold of what is to come in this new earth. And so a lot of people, they can feel this essence of altruism around the corner. But what's happening right now is they're actually confronted with still the ugly parts that we haven't done anything about. And we get to approach it as a community, not just as individuals fighting our internal battles, right? So we do have this process of going within and needing to take the time to shed and become anew and reprogram all of the stories that have been told to us. But we're also doing that with others. We're doing that with our programming as a society, what hasn't been working for all of us. And this is what's really shifting the paradigm into us caring about each other, realizing the importance of the um, individual parts and all of them being important and relevant. Also, looking at the true issues that are going on with mental health and how things have been so unbalanced. And we're saying, oh, people look at, oh, maybe it's this or that. Maybe it's the video games. Maybe it's the lack of attention. Maybe it's just that one family. It's like, no, all of our families have been sick at some point. All of our societal constructs are actually faltering and leaving a lot of people to the wayside and not being able to see that something is amiss way before things happen, right? For someone to be able to be so disconnected that they think that their actions don't matter or their actions don't really affect people and thinking this is what they have to do to get the shock to get the attention, right? There's a lot of negative attention instead of going into positive aspects. It's, oh, let's feature these drama, right? So a lot of people have had complications with showing their truest selves, their most vulnerable selves. And that's uncomfortable, saying that I feel alone or I feel disconnected, or even coming from the place of, I don't know why I have murderous rage, right? You don't say anything like that. You just suppress that. You just don't talk about it. You just ignore it, right? And in reality, people need to be able to communicate about it so that we can diffuse it and actually get proper outlets available. How many people are able to effectively communicate how they are feeling? And then can a person hear that without throwing up the triggers of abandonment? You can't, don't leave me. You say you're upset. Does that mean you're going to leave me? Does you say you need space? Does that mean you want me? That mean I'm not good enough? Or, my parents abandoned me, or let's say I had a witness of a negative story, or maybe, the not worthiness. All these things are popping up for people, especially when you're looking at safety as the foundation. So these places that this kind of stuff is happening are huge events, from concerts to schools, and people are taking places of learning and realizing that this is it's no longer a safe space, right? We now have to not only think about our constant safety, but now we have to start questioning everyone. And so instead of we're now having to look at it as a group and say, how are we going to now approach people's actual concerns and issues? How are we going to approach their ability to feel safe enough in a school to learn, right? Because what they've set the education system up as, and you can confirm or deny this for me because you've both been both in the private and the public sectors.
Hmm.
Um, what is it like to be kind of, you're not thrust from, I mean, I've heard depending on who it is, they don't have the ability as a teacher to really get into certain creative endeavors unless they're specifically an art teacher, specifically a music teacher. Like a lot
Hmm.
of that stuff has kind of been honed out of it. And then that the kids are being ushered into, what's the word? The test that you have to take in order to
Like
just say you've made it.
standardized testing.
Right. Right. And
Hmm.
does that actually reflect what is happening within their peer groups, what is happening within their emotional, is it allowing them to have emotional intelligence? Is it allowing them to actually explore, okay, maybe think constructs that we have at our home aren't actually healthy constructs, right?
Hmm.
Like we're not supposed to be yelling at each other or avoiding each other, or um different types of abuses that happen in the home. They just say don't talk about it, right? I mean, and that's not going to be on your standardized test anyway. So now we have to hone in and focus and make sure that you can pass this test
Right.
versus what are your actual strong suits and how can we nurture those to foster you as you find your place in society. Not there's a hole that needs to be filled in your niche, but you actually get to kind of form your own hole, or you form your own niche,
Right,
form your own
right,
hole.
right. And that is true. And to be honest with you, that's kind of some of the issues that we are seeing even in this generations that are coming up is again how it was in the beginning when we're talking about education, where it was again about um having the product of a student ending up to be a whole student, like they knew everything, the arts, that we're taught, their art, music, library, social science, those things. And it start getting like, no, they don't need this, take this away, they don't need this, they don't need this, they don't need this. And it started to be just only honing in to the core subject matters. And with that causes an issue because we have a child, they showing me like a puzzle piece that's like missing. It's like, okay, this is missing, this is missing, this is missing. Because a lot of times when we're talking about educational system, that school has in some ways, sorry to say, has taken place of home. I mean, we have become, the teacher has become the mother and the father and the social worker and the psychologist and the teacher and the nurse and whatever is needed, or the therapist, whatever is needed, and the disciplinary at that time. However, the child is missing some other components. Now, however, that's why I like teaching social science, because that's mine, it departmentalized, where I have an excuse to jump here, there, everywhere. I could do, even in my classroom, I make sure that I have them have social emotional learning. We talk about things, even from our opening. And then we get into the world views, and then we talk about history, but then we talk about how's it affecting now, how's it affecting them as youth. And so it's always that's good, but everyone does not have that liberty to make sure that they are given a holistic student. And a lot of times that's the issue. So here henceforth you have that student to grow up, and I just heard the young man say the other day, he was like, I mean, just today on the news, said, I'm a product of, I was born in the year of Columbine. I was like, oh my God. So here it is again, um, being from that and seeing this. And he said, you all have failed when we talk about school. And it's not getting any better. So I came from that year I was born, and I still seeing the same patterns repeated over and over again in school systems with the shootings and this and that. And so my thing is that when we're talking about the system of school and education, where are we really making sure, as you're saying, we are treating the whole child in the school system? And as you said, we are not able to have that. Some teachers do find ways to be able to do that, and some teachers are chastised or tapped, and then we don't do that. Go back to doing the academics, go back to doing the standardized tests and teaching, and make sure those children pass. And so there henceforth there goes the problem, because if the family home is deficient in that, and they're not exposing the child to those different kind of experiences, and you come to school and it's almost like the school of hard knocks, or almost like jail, institution of the system, there is like, where is the child? So you can understand why you have such as the child there that had there, and not excusing their behavior. However, you see how if that's a product of that system, how we get henceforth someone saying something happened to me when I was a child in elementary school, and my mom worked there, and so now I'm gonna come back there, and then I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z to the place. And so now you kind of see why we are producing those types there that don't know how to vocalize their emotions, because a lot of times, like you said, they don't learn it there, but you get another place you can learn it, which would be school. And when the school takes that away and they show them how to do it through social emotion, which is really a disconnect, you got to still show them that throughout the lesson and bring it all together so it be more organic and they understand that that's how to flow, instead of, okay, now I show you a lesson on social emotional learning, but okay, now we go back to the lesson. Okay, how am I supposed to be using social emotional learning while in this lesson? How do I apply that? It has to be in tandem. So this is where we are. And again, like I said, it's become uncomfortable. I mean, all around.
So it's it's um it's interesting to hear your perspective, and thank you very much for sharing it. Especially coming in from the side as a teacher and wanting to provide a safe space for kids, but knowing that there is limitations built within the system, and the system itself needs reform. And actually, in terms of listening to the children themselves and what are their needs, and it's not about giving them everything they want. It's about giving them what they need in terms of knowing that they themselves too can set boundaries, can set um, not I'm not looking for the word limitations, I'm looking for something else, but like the expectations they've set of themselves, to making them realistic without all of that pressure. And thank you to Margaret in the chat for giving your opinion about your son. Mimi, I would love to hear um, what you think about how the school is with with your child. But she said she likes to make it a mission to let her son consistently telling him to, or giving him the space to express himself. And so, as we go into this of getting into uncomfortable, giving time for that space to be uncomfortable means expressing what is making it uncomfortable in the first place, right? And if you don't know, giving yourself the leeway and the space to say, you know what, I don't know what fully is making it uncomfortable, but I'm willing to look into what that is within me, what that means, and then what I get to do to nurture that. And often I look at what's being set in that 0 to 3 years old range, what we're willing to tolerate, what we will ignore. And I found that the media right now is more distracting than anything else in terms of finding the core, right? It's pulling at every emotional string that there is available, but realizing that we have the power to do something, and that means communicating with each other. That means communicating with ourselves. That means
Hmm.
slowing down, right? We don't need to constantly be consuming or being fed information. Sometimes we just need to take those moments to let that information settle and then see what that means. What is it stirring up? You know, if you've made it this far in our channel, or even if you're brand new, a lot of it is understanding yourself and expressing what that is, and being in the space of knowing what triggers are, right? Because if
Hmm.
you are still in the space of not knowing what's triggering this is clearly, clearly our kids are hurting. The sides of ourselves that we're not acknowledging, they're hurting, and they're hurting each other. And because we're not having proper boundaries set and proper expectations for them, you know, a lot of people, they have built in what they think children should be acting or doing or saying or being, but not really allowing them to really be themselves.
Hmm.
And so, I kind of want to take a few breaths here right now. Of course, I'm getting my name called, right? Did you say you wanted to take a deep breath, mommy? Just come into your body. Allow your eyes, you can close them if you need to disconnect from everything for a minute. Take that deep breath in through the nostrils to the count of 4. Hold it to the count of 6. And let it out to the count of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in, fill them up from the bottom to the top. 4, and then we're going to hold it for 6. We're going to let it go for 8. And open your eyes, kind of come into your body. Let your body sway, let your body move. Does it feel like moving? Does it feel like being stiff? Just acknowledge. And if it feels like being stiff, you're going to go ahead and push yourself out of that comfort zone because nothing gets frozen on our watch. And we're just going to let your body start to sway, maybe roll your spine up, shoulders back, and your neck. Let your head follow. Maybe you want to go in a spiral from the hips up the spine, swelling the heart, swelling the neck, then the head. Kind of bicycle your shoulders back and open your heart up. Wiggle your toes, like stretch them out and pinch them together and stretch them out. Tap your heels on the ground. I want you to gently feel in your skin with your hands, like feeling your arms with your hands. And feel that pressure. You can also rub your hands up and down your body on your thighs, your calves. I mean, pending you're not driving, right? Rub the belly, up the chest. Kind of stop at the heart. Stop at the heart and just feel into the body. I want you to kind of open your eyes and accept your surroundings. Understand this is your place. It's okay to feel safe here. It's okay to feel safe on earth. It's okay to feel safe in this body that's healing and getting to know itself. It's all right. Go ahead and touch the belly and hold the belly. I want you to soften it, allow it to relax, open, and then I want you to squeeze it and let it kind of secure itself. And then relax it again into the hands and squeeze it. We're going to do this one more time where we open and soften and feel safe and comfortable. And then we squeeze it in from the lower abs to the upper abs. And we really know and hold our precious information, our precious intuition, our precious power. And we hold that in and we just let that start to grow and glow. Right? Because I can feel the heat coming there. And so you want to soften a little bit and tighten, soften a little bit and tighten. Kind of like you're getting it started. You're just giving it a little beat. Tight, relax, tight, relax. And you can start bringing your perineum and your lower muscles in, so you're tightening everything below and releasing. Tightening. You can even tighten your thighs, everything that's below the chest. Tighten and release. And tighten again, pulling all that mana and that energy in, making yourself like a magnet when you tighten and relax. That clears some spaces and helps bring in more of that security. And then we're going to go in between. We're not going to go so tight that we're distracted, but we're not going to go so loose that we're falling out. We're just going to sit there in the middle and allow that be our happy space, activating our root and our sacral and our creativity and our generations worth of work, as well as our solar plexus that we just pulled in. Because a lot of getting comfortable in the uncomfortable is remembering that you're secure in your body, that you can control to a certain extent your surroundings, but also relaxing into their surroundings, right? Because a lot of this is taking places that are supposed to be safe and sacred and making them unsacred. But what we're seeing is they weren't sacred. They weren't as sacred as we thought they were. They were not hallowed places. The education system itself gets to be rebuilt. How we teach gets to be rebuilt, and like the truest forms of history gets to be re discovered because we are living from a space of making things um, uh, making things seem like they're true, but they're not, and they're really written from a perspective. And now we're realizing our children have a perspective too, right? It's more than just, oh, he's messed up, he did the shooting. It's more like the whole system's messed up. All the kids need support. Now, what can we do about that? How can we listen to them when we've been told how long that children are not supposed to be heard or seen and not heard? But then also letting them feel heard and seen without letting them run amok too, right? Boundaries. You know, as a parent, what I'm starting to come into terms with is as much as I want to be my son's everything, I can't be my son's everything. I can't even be my own everything, but I can be what I can be. And I get to accept what I can do and what I can't do. And the hard part, because in the chat, our sweet Margaret's having a little bit of concern about her daughter and her coping mechanism that she's created, the OCD, right, which has to do with um, a, a control, needing to control something in order to feel safe, in order to feel like things are in an okay space, and coping with the things that are going to change, and having to share attention with siblings, and there's a lot in that. And I know her emotions are very strong right now. I remember when I was raising my sister, I was 21 and she was like 14, and their emotions are so strong and so intense that they oscillate a lot. So from like deep uh, adoration and love to complete resentment and hatefulness, because they cannot regulate their hormones yet. They're it's just creating all over, and they're dealing with their own responsibilities in terms of their karma. So giving that space, but also giving yourself some space for forgiveness, because you can't be and do everything, but you can do what you can. And then talking to her about what what she would like to do or what we can do to help fix this issue, because when she says things like this, or when she's doing things that show that she's angry or resentful, then you do care. It does hurt you. And you do want to be a perfect mom, but there's no perfect. It's just a placeholder. And so there's some realities that don't come to you, I think, until you're like 23 or 24. And that's like, oh, I didn't know everything. Oh, people are doing the best that they can, you know? And, maybe even sharing her the four agreements. And maybe you can even spend some time together in counseling where she feels heard. Because she said that her daughter's getting some assistance, and and that her daughter's partner or boyfriend helped open that line of communication for her. And so maybe you do need to have that heart to heart and time with her. And then also say that, there is a lens that you have. Um, there's a lens that you have because of how you were raised. And maybe you think that this is not enough, or that is not enough, or this is the way it's supposed to be. But how would you have handled it in that situation? Because I'm doing it the best that I can, and being real with her about your humanness, you know? Yeah. And and that sense of responsibility that she feels like she might have because of having now, does she have fibromyalgia or do you have fibromyalgia? Because that's a very intense issue when if she was helping to support and raise and be by your side, there's that sense of responsibility, but also where's my childhood, right? And
Hmm.
then that carries into something else.
Yeah.
And if it's um and if it's I feel like I have to have control because I haven't had control, you know. There's only so much you can do, and it's not all gonna be writer's rain. There's no two clicks and then you win the level, you know. You jumped over the hurdle. You did the thing. It's not a video game. It doesn't process that easily.
Game over. No.
Congratulations. You can go buy a new game now.
She said me, yes, and she ended up like I did unintentionally.
You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and put this out there. You're both women, and this is a DNA healing ceremony and activation type thing. So I wouldn't even think about. I don't know if you guys do the self care that I do, but I always suggest doing yoni steaming. And if you can actually do it with your child, and you work through, and you're listening, and your nervous systems are calm, and you're opening, and you're like, we're gonna change this for our generations. We're gonna change this cycle, right? You can start to shift and alchemize and go into a space where you can heal that. And she'll end up healing faster, right? Because you're carrying some generational stuff. When it comes to fibromyalgia and nervous system stuff, a lot of that is multi generational. And there's a lot of
Okay.
pressure put on um, family members to be something that other people want them to be. And there's some resented anger, and there's some
Yeah.
like healing, and there's some deep stuff like that. And you can have that and create that healing space together. And the yoni steaming opens up. Okay, so what I talk about in my book, yeah, I talk about epigenetics, and I'll do a brief little overview of epigenetics for you. Epigenetics is whatever is necessary for your survival, be that producing cortisol, meaning you're under a lot of stress, so you have to survive a lot of stress. If you were sexually abused or assaulted, and you have to kind of recover from that, so you have high levels of those types of hormones. Or maybe you were able to meditate a large portion, or be able to be in bliss. These types of things. These have signatures on your DNA, and when this happens, and you produce offspring, it goes into your child's child. So whatever you're carrying, your stress level, your hormones, they do produce the child, but they also affect the eggs or sperm of that child that was produced. Right? So what I liken this to is because they have studies that show meditation can shift and change how what is produced in what is produced via DNA replication or transcription. I'm trying not to get too technical, but I think I'm already falling down the technical rabbit hole.
It's
But how
okay.
you produce hormones and things like that, it shifts. So you can do this mindfully. Now, a super way to get into mindfulness and meditation is through yoni steaming, right? Because it calms the nervous system. It helps you produce oxytocin, and it can also, you're imagining heat, you're opening up into these areas, and you can actually shift from having that stress response by going through the trauma that's carried in the body and feeling and allowing it to process it and evolve into something new. So an example of that would be I have resentment towards my mother because she wasn't available to me. Well, um, I I know my mother was working hard to keep me fed and keep the house running. And so I understood that she wasn't available, and society had made it such that she had to work in the first place, or maybe a father wasn't available and abandoned the mother, or all these different things, right? And so you go through the process of acceptance and forgiveness, and that shifts it. So then you think about, my mother wasn't there for me, but I understand because my body now knows and has processed all of that anger and resentment, different things that it's holding, right? Also, there's the forgiveness because I myself, as a mother, wasn't able to do X, Y, and Z because how things have been structured, but I know that there's a better way out there now. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'll allow it to be in my energy field so I can take an opportunity that I didn't see before, right? And so you give yourself that self compassion, that self forgiveness, that Yoni steam alchemy, and then your body actually can change and feel the difference. And when you do that, it changes your genetic code, it changes your epigenetics of what's being produced actively in the cells, which actually does have a ripple effect for people who have the same DNA lines. So, like when I did the energy work and healing, it worked on my mother. Now, it didn't fully affect my sister the same way because we got two different dads and, a whole different story. But it really did shift how that alchemy worked, how we were able to communicate, how she was able to hear my story and recounts of my childhood and what happened, and how she didn't take it as a trigger because I wasn't triggered by it anymore. You know what? It happens because that's part of the lesson you are learning.
Mm-hmm.
She talked a little bit about um, beating herself up about a domestic situation that her children were exposed to. And you know what? You're out processing that, right? Why we picked abusive partners in the first place? Because I ended up in an abusive situation, and my son was exposed to that, and he has told me now that he has eloquent language that he does remember some of those experiences. And I said, I apologize that you have to now, as part of your line, clear this from yourself, right? You'll have to clear your anger and the need for control and all these different things. But understand that I know you can do this, and I have faith in you, and I love you, and I'm doing everything I can, especially from this moment forward and this breath now, to make sure that you have the best life possible. And me beating myself up and telling myself I did all this horrible stuff is going to just slow me down and distract me from the opportunities to be at peace and in love with my life and my son and the things that we're working on and we're moving forward in. But I also see, oh, this is where I learned it. This is how oh, these are the places where I didn't value myself enough that I put myself in this situation. These are ooh, that's a rough one. Sorry, honey.
Mm-hmm.
That's a rough one. Um, yeah, it's a matter of seeing things the way they really are and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Being outside of a relationship can be more uncomfortable than staying in an abusive relationship or picking up a toxic relationship. And so when you are actively healing that side of yourself, it is good time to take it slow. It is a good space to, I think I just kind of talked up the last 10 to 15 minutes.
That's all right now because you're talking about that, and I believe that again that was very much so needed because I can testify as far as the usage of the Yoni steam and how again that had affected my mom and I. We have a interesting connection, and I've said that even on the show, and a lot of it is kind of based on upon again the relationship they have between my mom and my dad, and seeing how I was put into that dynamic of what was going on. It was more so verbal. It wasn't any physical things that was changed every now and then, but like mom throw things or whatever. But my dad didn't get up and hit it most of the time. He just kind of looked at it like, oh, so we're throwing plates now, interested. So my mom would be more so that one expressing being frustrated and say that's the only way I can make you pay attention if I start throwing things in the house and objects and things like that. That never did hit back. I remember just one time. But anyway, and that was it. But it's interesting again when you're growing up. And I want to say this as a product of that, uh you know what, and my mom profusely, and I have expressed to her my not feeling grand about being put in that position, not being the person that was like the confidant or the mediator between them two. I would like to enjoy being a child, but that didn't happen. um there's something that's going to have to evolve, and that's something that we have to kind of work at getting it out of our spirit. My mom has said blue to her face, I'm sorry, I didn't know that's how you felt. I didn't know that's how it was being used. You felt that way. And, you as a mother, and I'm listening to both of you all, you probably can keep on saying it till you're blue in the face, but it's got to be a part in which it kind of clicks. Some of that is that we got to be put in the position ourselves, that we kind of get an understanding. We become adult. We can look back at it and say, oh, now I see. Be in a relationship ourselves, understanding how you can be captured into that kind of cycle of being with the person, because there's a lot of things as a kid that's going through our head, such as like, how could you make yourself demean yourself and stay in there? It's not working. Why aren't you trying to find yourself out of that? It starts to make you look at your parent in a certain way. It's like, okay, your value of them kind of gets diminished again. And but then when you get up older, like I did, and I looked, I was like, it took a lot of great strength for you to stay in that type of connection. And you should have went, or you stayed because it was me, and for my safety or for my security, to make sure that my needs was met. And you didn't walk out. And so when you get older, you look at it, I guess distance gives you a different perspective of things. And so as you get older, you can understand. So I don't know how old your child is. However, like I said, right now you say teenage years. Yeah, and it depends on how mature that child is too. They kind of get it. But at the same time, this is something that again, through something has to just click. I can just say for myself, through experiences, seeing relationships, myself being in it, that again is like, okay, you might have kind of judged your mom a little harsh. You have to remember, if you were in her shoes, what, would you have done the same thing? And so after a while, that kind of, you find yourself feeling like, what, I can't keep on harboring this anger at my mom like that, because of the situation of being there, I witnessing it. And you get to a point where it flips on the other side. You admire your mom, you understand, or the parent, why they made the choices that they did. You might not have understood it then, but you get a little bit more sympathetic, a little empathetic, and there's a less coming from that place of anger. Hopefully you get that. Now there are some children that continuously keep it going then, but hopefully you get that, I don't know, you want to say dark night of the soul, or that moment in which the universe will bring it, where the universe is like, enough is enough. You're not healing. You keep cycling about what your mom has said to you, or you keep on cycling about what your dad said, and it's time to release it and let it go. And it will bring that experience to you. So I can say as a product of that on the outside of a child that has grown up with that you be resentful for a while, especially you go to your teenage, you don't understand it, like, why she just don't leave? What the heck? Like that. Like I told my parents, I wish they were divorced, but I always said that. I'm like, y'all don't need to be together. But and I was like, I think I'm the oddest kid, because I listen to people talking about them wanting their parents to be together, and I never did at that time, because I knew, I was like, it's not right. You all have not gotten to the right place that you are truly honoring each other. And I think if you have some time away and you come back together, you'll get it. But I've always been an old soul. So my thing is again, we will get it over time. That's got to be evolved. And it's something that us as a product of that has got to kind of turn and get to the other side of it.
It takes that's a really beautiful perspective, right? Because we often like to take all the responsibility onto ourselves as depending on the personality type, right? Some people are in complete denial and it's the other person's fault. Other people are like, and also in complete denial and it's all their fault, right? It's all my fault. I did everything wrong.
Right.
And
True,
like,
true,
I'm
true. We
one of
talked
those,
about that today.
I'm learning how to not be that. And, you know, understanding that we're co-creating this experience, right? So if there's some uncomfortability, it's between two different beings, right? And those beings get to acknowledge that and then own their responsible parts of it. But the parts of you that are not capable of being responsible fully would be your child version, right? So when you have this irrational attachment to either being a victim or victimizing or like being the bully or like the owner part of it, there is that, okay, well, where am I stuck? Is it adolescence? Is it early childhood? Is it something that I picked up from my parents or my parents' parents? Because those things do too. And sometimes it's your social group. Like I watch my son and how quickly he picks up behaviors, good or negative, from those around him and just by witnessing. And is he conscious about doing these things? No. But are we? Not always, right? Because some of those things
True.
are, and because we're so used to grouping things or defining them as good or bad and whether we're accepted or not, often we can see where we hold on to an attachment to a language or a wording, and then it becomes triggering, right? Because we circle around triggers until we release them, and they're no longer triggers. And you can either get it so it's so sensitive that you're like avoiding connection with people and avoiding hearing certain things from people, or you completely shut down after you hear certain things. Or you can just say, okay, life is as it is. I'm going to take things the way I take them. They either work in the scenario or they don't work in the scenario. And so, how do I really want it to play out? And that's a heavy one for people because often we're not thinking about the situation playing out. We're thinking about the situation. Um, uh, um, I don't know if we actually want what. Okay, I guess what I'm getting at is you don't want to be uncomfortable. You want the situation to play
Okay.
out. Yes, that's great. Um, okay, so here she said that I still, yeah, I did that and I still do if I feel I'm too emotional and don't know why until I ask God and the angels who help me to self-analyze. And self-analyzation is great, especially when you're open to guidance about that self-analyzation. But you also get to take the reflection, right? So if someone's holding on to an emotion, like your daughter, you're saying, okay, so I think getting out of this, she doesn't resent you. That's a storyline that you're creating and recreating through the sentence and the structure. She doesn't resent you. She's trying to figure out how to process her emotion. And so, because she learned how to hold on to an emotion, because you taught her how to hold on to that emotion, you now
Mm-hmm.
get to teach her how she can let that emotion go and that it's safe to let it go. And she has to keep letting it go over and over again until it turns into another emotion, right?
That makes sense because that's why I was saying even with my mom and I was with my bestie and I was saying I was learning through my relationship with her how to let go in certain situations I've seen that I've done towards or did with her. And I was like, if I was in the shoes, I would feel resentment because I didn't do X, Y, and Z. And my bestie is like, okay, and she moves on from that. I've never seen anybody that says, um, can't do, I don't want to really reveal what the thing situation was, something that a person will walk around would have resentment about what was said and to be very free flowing about it. I've never seen that being demonstrated from my mother. It's always I hold on to it, I resent it, I keep on talking about it, I ruminate on it, I come back to it, I don't forgive them, I hold on. And to see that from my friend was like a breath of fresh air, which helped me to apply it to my mother. To saying, okay, you know what, maybe I don't like X, Y, and Z being exhibited, but you know what, I can learn how to forgive. And I think, like you're saying, if she does show that too as well, how to forgive, or again, or in some kind of way, the universe will go and find that lesson for her. She'll be able to apply that. I would say also, I know about the terminology. Yes, I was smart and mature enough to know that, but then again, it still was a part of me that said I didn't like being put in that uncomfortable position and made to feel like I'm comfortable with something that I had a problem with understanding what was going on with my mom or my dad or the dynamic of their relationship. So, I wouldn't say resentment. It's just like, it's just misplaced. I don't want to say anger either, but it's just like it's a strong emotion that you feel again towards your parent. And it's something that she has to kind of again work through. But a lot of that, it comes back to like what April says. It's like I'm looking back to you to see how can be able to get over that. So if you're still telling the story, it makes me keep on saying I'm telling the story to myself. If I'm seeing you release and forgiving, then that'll make me say, okay, well, then maybe I need to release and forgive. So I'm with you about that mirroring act as far as looking at your parents to say, sometimes we're looking for you to kind of lead the way. Show me something different, because what you showed me before, it has not been something that has really been helpful for me to be able to forgive and get over this. And that's what I had been trying to look maybe over the years too with my mom. But after a while, you kind of see that sometimes, and I'm not saying that's your case, Margaret, that your mom might not be capable of it. They're going to keep on ruminating. They're going to keep on going through the cycles. And you like, I got to go find the source of how to get out of this own cycle that I have for myself and go find the answer to it, so I don't keep on being in this uncomfortable space.
I think that's a great idea. Um, Modeling, acknowledging
Mm-hmm.
humanness, acknowledging that someone else's emotions are affecting you, right? Like, I don't, when someone says, like, my sister never was like that, actually, where she was upset, but I knew that her upset, I couldn't change her upset, but I was doing the best that I can, right? And so when you say, I acknowledge that you're upset and I apologize that these experiences happened, but I cannot change the past. I can only change right now.
Yeah,
And
she
I'm
said
willing to
that.
listen, but there's only so many times that I can take this story because I really want us to move forward. So, what would help you process it and help you move forward? Because is this how you want to feel? Is this where you want to get stuck, your emotions? Because clearly your emotions are stuck there because it's lighting you up every time you write this story. Yes, it will be reposted. You will find it right here. Same
Right, it's
bat
right here on
time.
the playground. It's always there. Right.
um, but getting into that space of I I'm a human too and I'm affected by you and I want you to be happy. But I'm not in charge of your emotions. I can't change your emotions and I cannot change the past. So what can we do at this moment right now to start moving forward, to increase forgiveness, to remember that you're worthy right now and you were worthy then for that time and that focus and that attention or that kindness or that compassion or that thing that you didn't get. But let's bring it in right now. How can you receive that right now? Okay, well, you have these now conditions that you have. Can you have patience with yourself with that condition and understand that it's part of from all these other things that have happened? And you, of course, you have a natural, especially since multiple people in the family have this, of course, you're going to have a tendency towards that. But we can work on that compassion and that self understanding for that process, and then give them the space for change. Quit labeling because that's all the box does is it tells you what your label is, and if you're not the same as the label on the inside, you want to keep trying to bring in the things that make you the label.
Yeah, but you have to almost just like again in a relationship. They're like, when you cheat on someone, I'm not saying the same thing. They always tell you, well, you're gonna have to keep on and keep on saying it. My mom kind of said it all different kind of ways, and each time when I bring it up, she's like, okay. At first it was like, okay, I heard you, it's nothing I can do with it, pop pop pop, that's it. But the more and more, and she starts seeing sincerely that again, okay, this is really paining you. It just like they tell us in psychology class, when your patient keeps on bringing you back to the same issue, that means that is a real stopping point. That's a point they want you to really drive home and know, if nothing else about them as your client, this is it. And so that's the same thing. She would again over and over again, just like what April said, I'm sorry, I know, what can we move on from this point on, from this point. And then you just have to keep on again and keep on. Got to release it. No one, I'm belching with that. You got to keep on and keep on and keep on. And again, I keep on, and maybe I hope you're understanding in my talking that it's got to get a point that she's got to get it too. You can talk about it too, but it's got to be, I feel it like that turning of the key to say, I unlock it and say, I got it. I can't continue to say mom is it. It's a teamwork. It's got to be just like union. It's got to be the two energies. It's got to come together and say, for true union to come, to have that aha moment. And that is what's going to happen. So yes, you might have to have continuous conversations with her to let her know and make her feel at ease about it. And my mom and I, we've had that too as well. It's getting down like Kathy D said, the coffee pot. It's a little bit was this big spot, and now it's kind of reducing a little bit down to like, okay, it's just a little speck every now and then. But I've trained myself to say, hey, you know what? When you get up older, you have to understand that a lot of times, whatever has happened with your parent, that stuff you can't keep on. You can't keep on blaming them. Now you got to start taking ownership and saying, what can you do and flip and change it around? But it's a process to get to there, because again, like April said, it was them, it's mom fault, it's dad fault. And then I start taking the mirror and say, no, look at what you contributed to it. Or you keep on telling the story and playing the victim. What is it that you need to change differently? And then sometimes I go back, it's mom, it's dad fault. And then it's like, we're in the back. Okay, we done been here. Does that solve anything? Are we still walking around with that energy within us? Yeah. So, after a while, it's just like, okay, no, stop. I'm doing like Michael Jackson. It's the man in the mirror. I'm looking at me. Well, let's change this. I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the interaction and relationship I have with my mom. I don't like the interaction with relationship I have with my dad. How do you need to change that? I got to change my perspective. I got to change something within myself so I can be able to see mom in a more loving light, dad in a more loving light. And so again, like I say, teamwork makes the dream work. That's what they said. So it's a two-part thing. But like Abel said back again, energetically, you'll be surprised. Once you start doing the healing, it reflects back to her. She'll start doing the healing, and vice versa. She start doing the healing, you start changing on your end. So it goes both ways.
I love that. I love it. And and that's the thing. We the hardest people I think to change with are the people that you're closest with or that you were
Mm-hmm.
raised with or that have a whole story for you, right? Because they want you to know who you are because it helps them define who they are because you have lived in those relationships.
Yeah, because it's not like family. They know the code. Go beep, 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 beep. Ah! She didn't
And
set me off. I tried, Lord. I tried. She's still
and
hitting
it's,
that
I
same
mean, you can
code.
even
Keep it
hear
moving.
their you can even end up hearing their kindness as like a rejection or something like that. It's very,
Right.
just a minute, hun. Um,
Yeah.
minute.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are doing your due diligence, there's a level of taking the time to say, okay, let's just be in neutral. Let's just not define this moment, especially when things are getting heated, right? Because it's real quick. If you're in trigger mode, and then teenagers, I think, are the most volatile. At least I was
Oh,
the most
Jesus.
volatile
Oh, yeah.
emotionally when I was a teenager, unless I was in a relationship, and then that relationship ended up with the friction, right? Because that's the thing that's closest to your heart or closest to your energy, closest to shit. And when you're living with someone and you're raising them and caring for them, you cannot run away from them, right? You get to sit and that space and create more space, right? Like, I hear your rage, I hear your anger, I see that. Maybe you don't see that, but I see that. So let's take a little bit of space so that can change into something different. How do you want me to receive you right now? What do you want me to hear or feel? Right? And I'm not saying you check out, but you remove yourself back, because your body's already going into some kind of system. Your mind's already trying to define this as this is just like those other times, so it's got to be like this, or this mirrors this situation, so it's got to be like that. It's like, it doesn't actually. It can be completely different. It can be a completely new scenario that you create in real time and co-creating it. So what do we actually want this moment to be? I mean, the thing is, you are her mom, but you're also her guide, right? But you're also only temporary, but you're also forever. And so is she, right? So it's more than just this one moment in your human experience. It's all the moments. And how do you want to feel overall? Do you want to have this conversation? Not, I mean, neither of us is going to transition right away. But if we died after this conversation, is that the last conversation you want to have? Is this the last way you want to feel? Is this how you want to feel, like most of our relationships, our interactions were? No, I actually want it to be enjoy, or enjoy each other's experience. Well, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And let's cultivate that, right? It's more along the lines of not anticipating the future, not saying, because this happened to me, it's going to happen to you, or because this happened to you before, it's going to happen to you again. That's already what the mind is trying to do, is to make these assumptions. And so, because it's making these assumptions, it'll keep making the decisions. If they're the same thing, it'll keep making the decisions to line up with those assumptions so that they can prove it themselves correct. But when you say, you know what, this is a completely different scenario. I'm about to learn a whole lot of miracles. A whole bunch of things are about to change right now. This next fight we're gonna have is gonna end up with us laughing and being closer than we've ever been, and creating space for that. I feel like I okay, this will be my example. So I feel like my daughter wants to resent me because I resent parts of my mother. Well, I mean, maybe that's not true. Maybe she doesn't want to resent me. Maybe she actually just wants to grow and heal with me. And it's okay that I don't know exactly how to do all the things, or how to make the pain go away from the past, but I can help us both stay present and creating more for the future. What is it that we actually want to do together? How do we want to grow together? She can also say, because if she's in the space of having had to be a caregiver as a child before she was able to really go into her child mode, there's a whole, okay, you want to control what I'm doing in order for you to feel like you're helping, but that's no longer necessary. Let's go into a space of what is it you want for yourself? What is it that you want out of this mother? That if she wants to be the kid, then what would help you feel more childlike? What would help you feel like you don't have to control this moment? What would help you feel free, like you're 5 years old again, running through a field of flowers or something, But for waiting for Chuck E. Cheese. whatever it is, waiting to go to the park, just enjoying the birds, coloring, and creating that space in your relationship to cultivate her child sides. It's all upside down. It's so funny. My kid is literally upside down. But we're turning the world on its head, people. We're turning the world on its head.
Yeah, and so yeah, I'm in agreement with that, especially when you have roles of you're taking care of. It's a little kind of interesting because it's like to me, you send, and from a perspective of the child, and maybe you might not have looked at it this way, which is again that when you at the perspective of them taking care of you, which I was again being the mediator between my mom and my dad. It's like 1 minute you want me to be the adult, but then the next minute you want me to go back in child mode. I'm confused. So again, that's something that you have to kind of think of too as well when you're talking to her, because again, it's like in some ways you have made me your equal in that way, and you probably say, well, all I was asking her to do is to take care of whatever, but that still makes her have to mature and go a little light years beyond her years. And that's the same thing there. And it's a little another thing of not the word, I don't know a better word of resentment, but it's like, why was I pushed into that discomfort zone when I wasn't ready, when I wanted to be a child and just be free and just express? So my thing is next time when she wants to express to say, okay, you know what, I did the roles and the position I had put her in, might had it's kind of confusing, and I've got to respect and be open and listen to her as to where she is now. I don't know, I'm kind of being brought up sometimes where the kids used to come and for report card pickup, and if the father was dead or he wasn't there or something like that, and that used to burn my crawl when they used to come in. You got to be the man of the house now, and I'm like, let the kid be a daggone kid. They ain't ready for that role yet. And that's what I feel like with that. But then at the next minute, it's like, no, I want you to be a kid. So that's kind of confusing signals that you're giving a child. And I can tell you as a product of that, it's very confusing with that. So just kind of keep that in mind, because that's a new thing I'm trying to learn, is also empathy and put myself in the other person's shoes. Now I'm learning that. That's something that even with the process of, I was watching the movie real quick, and the guy was like, you got to know now with the father being gone that you're not in the role of, she takes care of you. He's talking to, he was 12 years old, and he told him, it was the movie, oh Lord, what was it? Oh my God, I can see it. Oh, Adam Project. And he goes in the time machine and he sees his 12-year-old self, and he has this conversation. He's like, you got to remember, dad is gone. He's passed on. And you have to remember, you having all this attitude towards your mom. And he's like, you kind of, I want you to think and know this, that again, that your mom is taking care of you, but who's taking care of your mom? And so that's been another thing that I said, oh, I didn't think about that. So like my mom, dad is gone. My mom's taking care of me, but then who takes care of my mom? And that person's gone. So now I kind of look at her with another set of eyes of being empathy. So I just kind of will pass that on to you or anybody else. Is like, again, when these people are attacking or doing whatever, try to see again, it's like, okay, why is she acting that way? If I was in her position, would I answer or act or react the same way? That's just another thing too as well, that maybe in her little mind while she's saying, she's talking to you and she's lashing out, is because again, when you say that I'm your mom, it kind of puts a kind of interesting
It's
placement.
a pedestal. It's kind of like a check. Like you're trying to say, I'm your mom, so do what I'm telling you to do.
Right. And it's like,
So
but I've been, taking care of you. I've been like the take caretaker or guardian in some ways, but now you want me to slide back into the role of a kid? Okay, something ain't right. It's like, okay,
well, that,
it,
and because that's now her defense mechanism, right?
right,
So like I have to be adult in order to survive, right? So now you're trying to say that I'm not enough of this when I'm angry. I'm suddenly a kid when I'm angry. I'm suddenly a
right.
kid
There
when
you
I'm
go.
putting
Thank you
out
for
these
putting voice
emotions.
to it. Yeah. That's exactly what
and
I felt
and
from her.
it's like, no, you were always a child, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to really hold, have you always be a child, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm thinking about it, and it's like all of us were promised the Aquarian age. All of us were promised utopia. And we're all at the state of what? Wait, wait, wait. I came in this earth and we ain't utopia yet? What happened? Because I see it in the timeline, and that's not where I'm at right now. So there's all this extra pressure to like rush it and have it be good right away, and because we're so used to point and click and it's done, and it's okay that it's not done.
Yeah. Yeah, and right. And so that's why we're feeling this discomfort. This is why again, but again, I want another thing, twist to what our title tonight is to understand that sometimes we're so quick to get out of and I think you touched upon it too, so quick to get out the discomfort that we don't really sit in it and get comfortable in it and find out, like the rabbit hole, where is this leading to? Why am I feeling discomfort? What's the source of this? What is it that I need to get down to the meat and potatoes or the center of it so I can understand it, so I don't find myself. I found the card in this place again. I know it's showing it with the thing here. uh that
Oops,
I
that's
don't
not what I wanted to do.
yeah, it's got the
All right.
light on. I had to turn it off.
Maybe
For me
this.
to not
There we
get
go.
into this place again. It's interesting, the circle is trying to go around there where I'm sitting pretty in this place, but I'm not really truly comfortable. And it could be again because of genealogy, like you was talking about epigenetics. Now we this how the bookers was raised. We write this, we're fine here. Somebody else look like say, nah, that's not comfortable. Ain't nobody else like that. That's how your family do it, but it's another way to do that. So again, how again we can find ways to get out of where we are and not to find ourselves so deep into it and say, no, I'm okay. Trying to get out of it and not really getting down to the source of it and finding out why is this making me this uncomfortable, because maybe you should be comfortable and you don't realize it.
So yes, absolutely. I'm gonna point on just this one last note before we close out, but
Mm-hmm.
she's saying that her issue is I'm trying to remind her that I'm still mom. She knows your mom. She
Right.
knows your mom, but she had to defend you. She had to protect you. She has to do these things. So she put on masculinity, right? She put on these boundaries. And she put up this to protect you. Some more. Okay, you can get one more. Go put this in the Opala. Come on, Connie. Put this in the trash. Thank you. Okay, so she knows your mom and she had to defend you. And especially when you went through your situation with that, she had to put on some masculine stuff so she gets defensive. So that's where she goes when she feels like she has to defend herself. It's not because she just doesn't think you're her mother or she doesn't respect you. It's because that's how she knows to defend. And so having patience with that, you're going to have to relate in a different way to me, child. You're going to
Right.
have to put on um, you're gonna have to show me who you are, not just try to shout me down, right? Because shouting isn't actually getting your point across. It's making the whole situation escalate in a different way. So what are you actually trying to accomplish by saying what you're saying? Okay, then let's go to that result. Not you have to defend yourself or you have to deflect or you have to defend me even, right? I see you, I hear you. But let's actually get to the root of the issue. And it's you don't feel like you're heard, you don't feel like you're seen, you feel like you have to do more than you need to in order to be heard or seen. You feel like you have to suddenly build up armor, put up a wall, and you don't. You can just be present with me because I'm your mom. I love you, you know? And
Yeah.
we want this all to work out.
Right. And I'm in agreement with you about that. That's interesting. Last thing we wrap it up. That K Moon has stated about
Mix,
this
mix,
now where
mix,
we're moving
mix,
in
mix, mix,
to
mix.
Gemini, where we're moving into the energies of union, rather than union with self, union with other people or your mission, your purpose, or your family, or whatever it is, that she said the union has got to be pushed through the divine masculine energies. So there's again the divine masculine energies has got to understand there's a different way in which it's got to approach and to get this union feel, right? It's with union and your daughter. It's got again through that divine masculine energies of how you going about it, showing up, your authority, doing that is got to be done in a different way. And we all have to look at it and from that viewpoint, and then again have the divine feminine energies kind of follow through on that one. So again, please, you heard April talk about all through here about her Yoni's thing. Please make sure that you go over there and purchase that. I've been living testimony about how that could be able to shift things between you, generational, all the way back, or whatever, how you want to, or even with this within yourself, to move and get in touch with your divine feminine energies. Make sure that you're doing that, and also getting the copy of her book. That's your ebook. There's a living book that also changes and adds pieces as it goes along over there too. I know it's 2222. If it's still on there as well, make sure that you are again investing in that. If not the book, if you say no, but at least the Yoni's theme. That is very, I know for us, it's an out the box. But again, you'll be surprised about what other kind of tools and resources that you can use that can help you to get more in touch with your body, more in touch with, again, on the cellular level, because we're housing and keeping all that stuff. Let's talk about generational in there, even the hurt from this lifetime. Not even talking about other lifetimes is being housed in there. And that's another way to detoxify and get all of that stuff out of your system through the womb. Everything is manifested and produced through the womb. So of course, couldn't you produce your healing through it? Duh, duh. So yeah, so make sure that you are doing that. Anything you wanted to add as we close out?
That was a beautiful close. Thank you for that, and thank you for, witnessing and experiencing and seeing such profound um, change in your family after doing the Yoni thing, because people don't seem to get that, like, it really does affect
No.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, when you do it, like, a lot of people have over commercialized Yoni steaming, so you might be able to go and find a salon or something like that that does it, not, or just if you're not getting into the spiritual nitty-gritty of it, if you're not setting up your protections and stuff, those of us in this highly spiritual community, I highly suggest you go the more spiritual, anchored in your embodiment route, right? Because that's what we're doing right now is we're activating all of our bodies, all of our chakras, all of our everything through our wombs, right? We're bringing in the universe and we're remembering our power. So it's not just, okay, I'm going to have a cocktail and just steam my yoni. And it's like, it's a little bit, it's a lot deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
Very much so. Yep. So close us out. Get us on out of here. Right, you
Stay
on.
blessed, stay golden, and remember, you were made for this golden life. You can make it. I know it's uncomfortable. Just breathe and accept it. And then let's see where that uncomfortable takes you and leads you.
Yes. All right. And as always, stay uplifted, stay motivated, stay ascended. Namaste and Namago. Thank you. Make sure you click like, share, and subscribe to this channel as well for all the other good stuff and help. Thank you for those that was in the playground lounge over there and giving also information that helped us. That was a good topic. And you all adding on made it just fabulous of experience for ours. And I'm sure those who are viewers that are watching as well. All right, then. Until next time.